Gotham, Oakland. Peace, Oakland. What's up, y'all? I know it's Sunday, but we're going to get it in real quick with a very, very urgent and timely episode to talk about our good friend, well, not my friend, but some of y'all friend, Zac Unger, who was running for District 1 City Council against my good friend, the candidate who I want to see win, Lynn Raphael. So we have a volunteer with Lynn's campaign. He doesn't know Lynn, he's never met him, but he's very passionate about why Zac Unger should not be the next elected official and city council member out of District 1. So I wanted to interview Matthew because he's hilarious online. If you're next door, he's on there dragging Brandon Harami. Brandon Harami never can respond to him because he's a total fucking idiot. Anyway, let's bring up Matthew Fraser, communications expert. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Gotham, Matthew.
Thank you so much, Seneca. I'm really glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Tell us, our audience, a little bit about yourself.
My name's Matt Fraser. I'm really a career debate coach was my main thing. I taught in Oakland for 30 years. I lived in Oakland full-time for about 15 years. Currently, I'm in Oakland and Emeryville part-time of the year, more the summer and spring. I have a summer program business that runs out of Berkeley, but I like to live in Oakland and experience all the vibrancy of it. So that's, I've been following Oakland elections for a long time. I arranged at Head Royce in Oakland the mayoral debate in 2012. It was the last debate of the season. I proposed it to the school. I sent invites out very last minute, and about 5 days before the election, we had all the major candidates come and debate before, I think it was about 800 people, something like that.
In that election, it was the main three candidates, if I recall correctly, were incumbent, the incumbent, what's the name? Then there was also Dan Siegel, who the union switched up to back. And then there was Libby Schaaf, who eventually won. Mayor Kwan, is that correct? Were those three top candidates?
Jean Kwan, and I believe the two big vote getters were, there were Libby Schaaf, Jean Kwan. I think
Kaplan and Dan Siegel. Kaplan ran.
I don't remember Dan Siegel.
He ran, and the union are the ones who backed him. We switched from Kwan to Dan because Kwan worked with Lamont Uwo to do the restructuring of Oakland's financial debt, which included the unions taking a haircut. They were mad about that and felt that Kwan didn't protect their financial interests and switched their allegiance to Dan Siegel.
Interesting.
So that's this isn't about me. This is about you and Zac Unger.
I lived in Oakland, and when I moved in 2010, things weren't great, but they kept getting a little bit worse, and it was really disturbing to me. So I began watching Nextdoor and all the publications and really immersing myself in the elections. And after a few years, it kind of dawned on me that things were not right because there were more and more taxes and less services. So I just had a very simple question. Where does all the money go? Where does it go? There's so much money. There's like $2 billion, and where does the money go? So that's what piqued my interest.
Well, on top of that, why do we owe so much money to nonprofits who are performing essential city services, which, by the way, unions did not protect their own bargaining unit with the steady and incremental encroachment on their scope of work, which they're supposed to be fighting against. But nevertheless, now you have nonprofits running a significant amount of essential services, including, let's take, for instance, Operation Dignity, which is owed, I believe, over $8 million to this day. They haven't been paid yet for their work. So not only is where's the money go, where did it go?
No, that is terrible, but it is the tip of the iceberg. What I discovered, hundreds of hours of research on Transparent California, is this incredible resource that most people are unaware of. It's very user-friendly and accessible. And just go on Transparent California, look up the salaries of Oakland workers. It is unbelievable what the pay is. And I hope we can get into that a little bit, because the bottom line is there is an ongoing trade, an exchange, a quid pro quo that's going on between the forces of the special interests, and Zac Unger has been the de facto head of those people, and the elected officials. Every elected official that rubber stamps these agreements basically has sold their soul to Zac Unger and the unions and special interests of the city. And it's a dog and pony show where now all of this money is just given in vast sums to a very small group of workers. There are 3,500 workers full-time for the city of Oakland. We are paying in 2024 almost $1 billion of a $1.8 billion budget. Now, that's about 60%. Most cities are paying about 35 to 40%. So the money, like if you just take a comparably sized city like Sacramento, and you will find that in many of the normally run cities, the combined wages for police and fire, for example, benefits and pay are about $200,000. In Oakland for this year, the record last year was, for the record, in 2023, it was $324,000 for OPD, and $328,000 for Oakland Fire. That is the average combined wages. So that means for this year, with just the published wages that we know about, you are talking about roughly $350,000 per OPD officer and $360,000 for Zac Unger's people. So it is okay. Compare this to San Francisco. They are nationally famously generous, right? You don't get much richer than San Francisco. Well, San Francisco's total pay for public service workers, this is in the Gardner report that was done on July 9th. You might remember when this hit. He's done incredible work detailing a lot of the payments. Even San Francisco, with incredibly high salaries that are mocked on national, talk shows.
And a higher cost of living.
$190,000. Do you know what the average for all workers in Oakland? So San Francisco's 190. You would guess Oakland would be 150, 160, maybe 170 or 180. Almost as much as San Francisco. More, way more. $237,000 for last year. $250,000 per employee on average for this year, compared to $50,000 a year less. So just do the math.
Now, Matthew, I'm going to have to cut you off here because I've done an episode of this Oakland report, and I do appreciate your thorough briefing. But we're not here today to talk about Oakland's budget.
Fair enough.
We're here today to talk about Zac Unger. Now, you knew Zac Unger a while back, right? You told me a story that you used to teach him. Tell our listeners a little bit about your experience as a teacher. Educator.
I can't really go into details. He was a student. He was in my classes. I do know Zac Unger. And I like Zac Unger. When he became Oakland Fire president of the union, I was happy. I just had a little pride that my ex-student was doing great, using his little bit of communication skills that maybe I played some small part in putting together for him. I was happy, but I began to put all this together, and honestly, about 2 to 3 years ago, things really were spiraling out of control, and it really dawned on me that Zac Unger, for at least 10 or 12 years, in my view, has been the central figure in assembling these salaries. Len Raphael, his opponent, has posted on his website a very good press release that, in Len's own words, explains it. He basically points out he's a CPA, a certified public accountant. He is a high-level financial professional, and he's been lauded, Len, by the East Bay Times as having great financial acumen and what we need to solve this. And the reason this ties into Zac Unger is because Zac was in this exchange that I alluded to at the beginning. Zac had been amassing resources to begin to give ever larger and larger contributions to the elected officials. The mayoral's race and some of the extreme progressives seem like the ones who were most interested in large buckets of money from Zac Unger. There we go, Lan Raphael. And the bottom line is that Zack became a pivotal figure. He has posted Facebook posts saying he had 40 and 50 city workers at a time working. There he is endorsing Mayor Sheng Tao. Now, he doesn't talk about Sheng Tao very much these days. You have to really
no,
ask.
he doesn't. But you know what? Let's take a pause for the cause. And I want to bring up and watch this video. You spoke about it, so let's just watch this video. I'm trying to get the split right so we both can see the video and be seen. Okay, I think this is gonna have to do here. So I'm gonna play it real quick for our listeners.
I'm Zac Unger, president of Oakland Firefighters Local 55, and we are proud to give our support to Sheng Tao, the next mayor of the city of Oakland. She is the top person on the council for fire protection. She has always fought to keep our neighborhoods safe from fire, to keep our wildfire risk mitigated, and to make sure that the fire department has the staff we need to keep Oakland safe.
No, as I understand it, didn't Sheng Tao's failed budget just call for the cut of maybe 5 or 6 fire engines? Something that the fire chief said, had that occurred prior to the recent Hill fire, we would be, quote, looking at a different scenario, unquote.
Yes. Well, you know, they're bankrupting the city. The amount of money, you know, this was quantified in the Gardner report, but you can do your own back of the envelope math. It's about $170 million in excess compensation to people just sitting at home. Just multiply 3,500 workers times the $47,000 differential, and our workers would still be paid as well as San Francisco. $47,000, that totals about $170 million. It would completely solve our deficit plus $50 million.
Wait, are you telling us that all we have to do is pay people a fair living wage equal to what San Francisco makes, which has a higher cost of living in Oakland, and our budget deficit solved? So because of greedy and unethical union pay for play and people like Zac Unger, they're pushing Oakland into financial insolvability and bankruptcy? Is that what you're saying, Matthew? Okay. Well, I want to show our readers just to, I like to share things here right away if you've been noticing. When you talk about it, I bring it up. Let's watch this about fire. We just watched Zac Unger say that Sheng Tao did all those great things for fire, but let's hear about what's really going on in the streets of Oakland right now.
From CBS News Bay Area, this is the Evening Edition.
Well, we begin with a growing concern over major potential cuts to city services in Oakland, including fire and police. Good evening, I'm Ryan Yamamoto. Several council members are calling out the mayor over what they say is a lack of transparency and answers that, well, may not come until after Election Day. Much of that uncertainty stems from the sale of the Coliseum site to the African American Sports and Entertainment Group. Wilson Walker on the worries that public safety could be at risk.
If you take 5 engines out of place and those 3 engines that we don't normally have, that's 8 engines that would have been first due to that fire. Very little math will tell you that we would have probably lost those homes on Campus Drive at a minimum.
It was an attention-grabbing warning from Fire Chief Damon Covington telling Oakland City Council members that last week's fire response is the kind of thing that might suffer under the city's contingency budget. Now, going back a little bit, it was back in July when the council approved a budget built largely around the sale of
Where's the money, Ray? Where's the money?
Payments expected in a certain period of time.
By way of a purchase and sale agreement with a purchase price of $105 million.
Since then, the deal has changed. The city is getting more for the sale of the property, but the timeline is not what the budget originally called for, thus triggering the backup or contingency budget, which does include the freezing of 5 fire companies for 9 months.
So I didn't vote for the budget.
Okay. I've already covered this before, but I'm going to be a little repetitive because it doesn't seem to be driving the point home in local news, although we did just watch the local news show. They don't seem to ever connect the dots when they're asking Oakland's mayor, soon to not be mayor, Sheng Tao, about her failed budget. So what else would you like to share? We're hitting the 15-minute mark. We're going to wrap it up soon. So I'm going to give you 5 or so minutes to go on a nice filibuster rant about what Oakland voters need to know about this election cycle and why you wanted to do this interview today. Matthew, I'm muting myself. Go for it.
What you need to know as voters is that Zac Unger has been in a long-term exchange with the people of the city council and the mayor's office. The deal is very simple and straightforward and devastating for Oakland residents. The deal is that 3,500 workers contribute about $2 million per election cycle. Just 3,500 workers, and half of them do not live in Oakland. Think about that for a second. Half of these people do not live in Oakland. Who spends thousands of dollars per member in a city they don't live for the elected officials? Well, Zac Unger and his friends do, and there's a reason why. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. The reason is that this money buys them a rubber stamp for their deals. The return is astronomical. Consider this. If it's about $170 million in what we could call excessive compensation, mostly in benefits, but also in some salary, but it's mostly in benefits, and they don't even get much benefit from it, but they felt that it's free money, so they should take it, is what I'm guessing the thinking was. So they get about $170 million in annual increase above what even San Francisco gets. Compare it to other cities and you get even more. And on average, because they just put in just $2 million every 2 years, it's $1 million per year. So they get an astronomical 170 to 1 return on their money. For $1 million to purchase the politicians, they get $170 million of your money in return. This is not Oakland City money. I hear people say that all the time. I can't worry about the city money. It's not city money, it's your money. This is what we don't seem to be processing and connecting the dots on in Oakland. It is your money. It is your lack of city services. It is your fire department in the end that gets cut, but it's the youngest guys who get cut, which is why it's okay. That's an important point, because what they really want to preserve is that $100,000 a year retirement. What they really want to preserve, Zac Unger in 2019 made about, I think it was $280,000 in pay, pretty high. Well, that I think it was $270,000. The next year, 2010, his pay rose to $380,000. That's not a misstatement. That is right there on Transparent California. That is a $115,000 raise if you compute it. Do you know anybody who stayed in the same exact job position and in 1 year, as we headed into a pandemic, got a $115,000 raise? That is what we're facing. And you can it's not just Zac Unger, it's across the board. Compared to San Francisco, it's a $47,000 increase. And if you multiply that, it's $170 million. So what all the news stations have missed, what they will not connect the dots on, and I don't understand why, is that these deals have amounted to the money that has sold Oakland down the river. There's one other side effect that I want to talk about that's why police has been cut so severely. In 2012, Zac Unger, when he started to take really major leadership, fire lagged Oakland police by $12,000 a year, which sounds pretty reasonable because police are on the streets every day with criminals and rough circumstances. Fire does a great job. No one's disparaging fire. I love fire. I love the fire department, but I don't love the fire department getting so much money that we're bankrupted. Now, fast forward to 2023, and under Zac Unger, after his leadership, he's been president for 6 or 8 years now, Oakland Fire makes $4,000 more than OPD. That is a $16,000 swing, and it's about $10 million a year. So if we multiplied that by, you're talking right there about 50 or so police officers that could be on the streets, but they went to make sure that Oakland Fire makes $360,000 instead of $345,000. Because we all know
So,
Zac
so
Unger
Matthew, let
only
me
made
ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. So Zac being an elected official means they don't even have to do the switcheroo. He can just vote directly on the interests of the unions himself.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Well, this is what's astonishing about this election. There was an article in one of the Oakland, the Steve Tavares publication. He wrote about a year ago when Zac announced that the unions were making a drive to get rid of the middleman. That was the title of the article, because they don't want to have to load up the truck, load up the cart, and take the money down the block. They want to just back the truck right up to the treasury and load it directly in. They want both sides of the table. And if there was a last person in Oakland that I would put on city council, based on the record, just the record, I would not put the guy who saddled Oakland with $170 million a year in excessive benefits and costs. It's insane. And yet in Oakland, I met a guy today, and I was canvassing at Oakland BART to people who say I'm not here enough.
Which one, Rockridge?
In Rockridge. Yeah, Rockridge BART, sorry. I was there at Rockridge BART, and I met a guy who said, I'm actually friends with Zac Unger, and I'm voting for him. I said, he's basically bankrupted the city, and the average Oakland worker makes $240,000 in reported average across all the departments with total compensation. And he put his head down and said, I know. I said, they're bankrupting the city. He said, I know, but he's my friend. Well, we've got to get over this. Zac Unger may be a guy.
This is Oakland. Matthew, what you're saying is why the regressives here.
We need to rethink how we're approaching this. We need to protect our own families first, rather than 3,500 workers, half of whom do not live in Oakland. The average 430,000 Oakland residents, this is so important, the total they donate per election cycle is about $1 million. 430,000 people donate about $1 million to campaigns, and 3,500 people through their unions donate more than $2 million. So they're buying something, and what they're buying is access to the treasury of Oakland, and they've got it. And Zac Unger is going to be there if he gets elected to try to do everything he can to stop a reduction, because people are becoming aware, word is spreading. I think Zac Unger's taken some big hits the last few weeks as people are beginning to understand he makes $400,000 a year on the backs of people who make $80,000 a year. That's not progressive. It's regressive in the worst sense. They are minting 1,000 multimillionaires on the backs of people who make $80,000 a year. So if there's nothing else people need to remember, it's that they are minting 1,000 multimillionaires on the backs of these people. People say there's some rich people in Oakland. Well, very few. 90% of Oaklanders make $120,000 a year or less. Zac Unger makes 3 times that. 3 times, and he will retire with well more than $100,000 a year. That is 3 times the maximum Social Security benefit in his early 50s for life. The total lifetime take for Zac Unger will be between $10 and $15 million if you don't give him a council seat. If you give him a council seat,
who
I don't
knows?
know,
He's going to retire a
20 million or more,
billionaire.
the sky's the limit.
He'll add himself to the list of Oakland billionaires, I guess, who run politics. Let me tell you something that I know that's coming in 2025. But if you're listening right now and you're still here at the 24-minute mark, you're in luck. I know for a fact that many union members are about to blow the whistle on the fact that they have little to no say over the expenditures of the PAC money that the unions are spending on these failed candidates. For example, there are very few workers in the city of Oakland, especially in the SEIU 1021, which are the more blue-collar workers. Of the people who do live in Oakland, who tend to work for public works and be black men, virtually none of them want this mayor elected. They have a storm coming in the public sector unions because of their action. They have been such in a desperate panic to carry water for these failed people while they're destroying our city, and the whole world knows it. But they've compromised themselves to the point that they're going to make easy pickings for us as we continue on this reform and Oakland revolution to get these corrupt and inept politicians the fuck out of this city. Matthew, thank you for coming today. I appreciate you. One more word. You got one left. Let's go. Let's hear it.
In 2012, 12 years ago, Len Raphael was quoted in Oakland North saying, "The consensus we have is dangerously mediocre, and we will consensus ourselves right into Chapter 9 with a high crime rate to boot." So 12 years ago, I don't know anyone else who did this, Len Raphael predicted that we would be headed towards bankruptcy, and because we wouldn't have money for policing, we would end up with lower policing and a crime rate to boot. Look at that 2012 article and tell me that that is not a top-level CPA who had the vision, who applied it to Oakland, and we just didn't listen. So we have a chance to rectify that mistake and listen and elect Len Raphael, and we can begin to get on the right track. It's not impossible, but you need to, time is short. You need to, if you're listening to this, you need to convince your friends that Zac Unger is about the worst thing that Oakland could have at this point in time.
I've already been working on that. You already know I can't talk to Len Raphael, who's my friend, who used to be an officer in FOU till he decided to run. And then we wanted to go ahead and help him out. So he had to recuse himself, and we had to firewall ourselves from speaking to Len. But I will say that I hope he wins. I'm always honest on my show. So Len knows that I'm not very confident that he's going to win, only because the time that we started and we didn't have enough time to expose Zac Unger.
We didn't have enough time, but these arguments are truth. They are God's honest truth.
They are, and you know what? We're going to be able to get him out. He's a one-termer at best. If he wins. If he wins. It's not over yet. We've got 2 days left. Half the city hasn't voted, and then we can get this message out to the people. Maybe we can win Len a few more votes. So with that being said, I got to go edit this thing out and get it to the people so they can hear what we're talking about. Matthew, peace.
Thank you,
for coming.
It was really great to talk to you.
No doubt. And peace, Oakland. Thank you for joining us and rocking with us. You know I love you. Please, for the love of God, vote. 100,000 Oakland voters did not vote in the last 2 elections combined. They're not consolidated in the flatlands, but they trend in the flatlands, but there are plenty in the hills too who are not voting. Get out and vote. We need every person to vote and save Oakland. Thank you, Matthew, and I'll talk to you guys all soon.
Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here.